Yeah. So I was, of course, not approached by these people, probably because every day on my show I talk about how I've never talked to an advertiser, never talked to a billionaire, never done an ad read, never talked to a PAC, never talked to a government. Like, I go through this whole...
What's going on, you guys? We have Kyle Kulinski calling out David Pakman. David Pakman is taking money under the table. Kyle Kulinski is wanting to sort of just call him out, wanting to put a stop to it. Again, Kyle Kulinski going after David Pakman. Let's get into it.
To me is the top tier was getting $8,000 a month. That's a lot of money. Although if you're David Pakman, it's actually not a lot of money. But for most people, it's a lot of money. Some of these people are getting $250 a month. Like, and there's a lot of work that's involved. You have to go to a daily messaging check-in and these weekly things, and you got to run this by them, and you can't do that, and you can't do that. What are, like, why are they selling out so cheap? What are they thinking they're getting for this, like, $250 a month?
There's nobody else offering them anything. That's why. That would explain it to me, right, Taylor?
I think, yes. And I think it's like the allure of like working with the other big creators, feeling part of this program, getting access. Like, you'll see a lot of, like, I look at this girls, there's one of the girls that has this like pro-Democrat, like, you know, DNC apologia, like American Girl doll meme page. And I'm just like, what would possess someone to run an account like this?
Those words don't even make sense together as like a pairing. I don't know what that means, but go ahead.
She's on the highest tier, to be clear. She's on the highest tier, okay?
Wow.
Wild. But if you look at the content on her page, it's literally just like her hanging out with Chuck Schumer, you know, in the like in Congress, being like, hey, girlies, like, I'm here, you know, with like these guys. And so they clearly thrive on like access and this sort of like feeling like they're part of this DC in crowd. And, you know, a bunch of these people, that seems to be what they like really live for. And I don't know why else you would sort of sign some of these agreements. You know, aside from that, I mean, maybe you want to network, you want to be part of it. Like I did talk to another person that didn't take the deal, actually, that got offered that low amount, that was like, I'm not doing it for that, but was considering it because they were like, well, Brian Tyler Cohen's really powerful in the space, and like maybe he'll have me on his channel, right? Like maybe that will boost me somehow. Like, these big creators do wield power, and I think they sort of, that allure is appealing to certain people.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I think the point that triggered me the most reading your article is somebody says that the goal of Chorus is to, quote, build new infrastructure to fund independent progressive voices online at scale. That word, independent, has been so bastardized, and it makes me absolutely furious. It has to mean something, and if you're taking dark money, if you're taking billionaire money, that's like the opposite of independent. Independent has to mean something, and the fact that even knowing you're reporting, somebody could say that back to you, like, oh no, we're trying to create independent. It's like, what are we doing here? This is so backwards.
Yeah, because it's like astroturfing kind of like a program together. And in my opinion, I mean, I went independent for my full, and obviously I still write for a lot of mainstream media, but I really wanted to like be able to truly be like independent supported primarily, like maybe it was like 8 or 9 months ago, whenever I left the Washington Post. I think that disclosure is so key. And if you're going to be independent, and if you're going to sell yourself as independent, you need to be open with your audience and say, listen, like, I am 95% supported by you. Like, maybe I agreed to this program, but here's why. And, you know, here's the full, you know, I'm not under any editorial control, and here's like the full information about it, and be open with your audience. I think the problem here is it's like this sort of backroom deals. And then they're presenting themselves online as, you know, we're just normal independent creators.
Yeah,
I think it's important to say in this space that, like, I mean, especially on the left-wing side, you have to look at it as these people are here to inform you. We are here to serve you. But even the servants have, you know, imperfections. We're all human beings. I think that if you fall into that same type of, right wing, we're going to just worship anyone as our God, as like our tribe leader, as, I think we're sort of all programmed to do. If we do that, then it definitely comes to issues like these, to where you see different people that will let you down. These people will always let you down. You have to remember that you can take from this and leave everything else.
Down to as well, because the transparency piece, because like, you know, this show that Kyle and I do is like as pure as it's completely reader supported. Kyle and I both in our separate shows have a policy we'll never talk to an advertiser. We're not doing the like, you know, Hims ads or Casper mattresses or
Hims.
like whatever, you know, Blue Chew.
Fleshlights like Rogan used to do.
I see Sam Cedar out there selling a bidet. Like we're gonna not do, but I also, you know, like for the work that you do, your work is very expensive. It takes time. You have to go and do the investigative journalism. You're not going to be churning out a daily take the way that I can just sit in front of a camera and be like, here's what I think about X, Y, or Z. So I understand why people make somewhat different choices in terms of the financing of what they're doing than I've made. But to me, the key is like, you at the very least have to be transparent about that. And I wonder how you think about it because, you know, obviously you were at the Washington Post. I was once upon a time at MSNBC. So we've seen the inside of how these things work at mainstream institutions. And for all of our critiques of legacy media, there is a firewall between the people who are selling ads and the journalists who are doing the, you know, the reporting or the anchors who are live on air. Like when I was on MSNBC, I had nothing to do with the ad department, the sales department. I had no idea what ads were playing during the commercial break. And part of my fear with the shift away from mainstream sources and towards independent personalities and creators and journalists is that you're actually getting an even more sort of like directly corrupt relationship in many instances.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think about a lot because, well, I have one brand deal with the Delete Me, which is a product I've used for literally, I think, half my life because I've been doxxed so many times. But you know, it's really hard. Like, first of all, not only do no brands want to sponsor like investigative journalists and people constantly ensnared in controversy, and not in a positive way. But it's also like there's so much that I've turned down, so many opportunities that I've turned down because I think it would just be unethical of me as a journalist, and I feel like it would put me in a weird space. I write a lot about privacy, for instance, and you know, civil liberties online, and there's a lot of products that harvest data or do weird things, and I just think it's like this problem that I don't think that. I think people just watch YouTubers and they think everyone operates like as YouTubers and they don't understand that actually it's really hard for journalists. Like I was talking to a content creator yesterday who didn't realize that like journalists at mainstream institutions like couldn't make outside income. They were like, well, what about all this? And I'm like, no, like you can't do any of that. That's the whole thing is you work there and you sign these agreements and it's kind of liberating. You don't have to worry about that. You're getting a salary from a media org.
And I completely agree with Crystal Ball and Kyle Kulinski. You know, I think that people like David Pakman, like Brian Tyler Cohen, that are making money from the different supporters, from the outside donations, you know, you have to be transparent about who is supporting you. You have to be transparent about who's backing you, because then it's obvious that they do have an effect on what you speak about. It's very, very clear that David Pakman is allowed to talk about some things and not talk about other things. I even see people in the comments that say that he's been very, very, he hasn't really covered anything going on in Gaza. But it's just different scenarios like that you have to watch out for, where the person is sort of being paid not to talk about it.
Yeah. So I was, of course, not approached by these people, probably because every day on my show I talk about how I've never talked to an advertiser, never talked to a billionaire, never done an ad read, never talked to a PAC, never talked to a government. Like, I go through this whole spiel of, like, I try to fund this as pure as I possibly can. So it would make sense why they wouldn't reach out to me.
And you talk about Gaza all the time.
Well, hold on. Let me get to my question here. Okay. Because it's not just me, though. I'm pretty sure they didn't reach out to Mike Figueredo of The Humanist Report. I'm pretty sure they didn't reach out to David Dole. When you look at the size of my channel, the size of their channels, Hassan Piker's another example, streaming on Twitch, probably the biggest political live streamer in this space. They didn't reach out to him. So kind of weird, isn't it? That you're doing this democratic thing, left-wing liberal thing in theory, and it's like, we got to try to, get the message out there, spread the good word. But some of the biggest left-leaning creators, who everybody I just mentioned supports the Democrats over the Republicans. We have criticisms of the Democrats, but if you give me a Democrat versus the fascist in the White House now, 10 out of 10 times I'm going to pick the Democrat. But why is it that they didn't reach out to any of those people? Is it because they know that it's a shady funding model and we might have ethical issues with it? Or is it because they know we don't comply with their policy platform perfectly? Which we'll get to a separate question on the policy platform in a second. But why do you think it is that people like us never got an email, never got a text message, never got a phone call when we're some of the bigger creators on the left in this space?
This is a question that I put to both Chorus and the 1630 Fund. And I asked, like, what is your criteria, or like, can you disclose any information about this program? Because I think this is, again, why we need transparency. We have no idea why they selected the creators that they do. I think all we can do is look at the creators that have been made public and look at sort of commonalities between them and make our best guess. Because they have not been transparent since either. They still refuse to release the full roster of content creators. There are content creators out there that are part of this program that have not, that were not named in the article that we couldn't confirm, but that are taking this money, right? And so I think it's just really bad for this space. And I think it's just, it shows, it shows some sort of editorial discretion on who they're partnering with, right? But we just don't have any idea of what qualifications they had. And I think, and also what influence, an organization, like what influence, for instance, did the 1630 Fund, this is something I asked, like have any influence on what creators were chosen? Like these are all questions that we would love answered, and we have gotten zero transparency.
So there we have it, you guys. We have David Pakman getting called out, as well as Brian Tyler Cohen also getting called out. Both of them are very, very much supportive of the Democratic Party, which, they're on the same side. I believe the biggest thing is just taking the money so that you're not allowed to talk about democratic issues. These are issues, such as what's going on in Gaza, such as different things that, they may have sort of a contract agreement to not talk about. And if they're going to say that they're for the Democratic Party, then they must be able to speak about the values that we all sort of agree upon and that are just democratic issues to begin with. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's another day in the progressive way.